Now, what do you do when you see others doing wrong things, especially on the roads? How about those who break the law? Do you know what to do as an ordinary person when you see something unusual around you? Well, the stealing of the crash barriers worth over $3,000 at the newly commissioned Pokuase Interchange is this afternoon raising questions about the individualistic nature of the ordinary Ghanaian. Well, we hear from some prominent Ghanaians on the need to revisit our core values as a people. But first, we can hear from contractors of the Pokuase Interchange who are urging the public to be on the lookout for a syndicate engaged in the stealing of streetlights and other road construction materials. Maxwell Abagba has more in this report.
Pokuase Interchange was commissioned by President Akufo-Addo sometime in July this year. Well, many of the residents here were excited when it was commissioned because it reduced the travel time and reduced the traffic congestion, usually in this part of town. Residents who've been speaking to witnessed how the unscrupulous persons stole the crash barriers.
We encountered some people, about 5 people with a truck, and they were working on it. We thought they were working on it. It was at dawn, around 5:30. When we were coming from the church. Yeah. So when we met them from that end, where the last metallic pillar is, to the last end there, where they have, fixed the new ones. So they moved. We were here 3 days later. I saw some of the workers in the afternoon walking around and, looking at what has taken place. So I confronted them and asked them, I have kids here who used to, play around, and I have asked you people to do this for us. And now that you have helped us with it, you have come back to remove it. And the guy told me they were not the people who came to remove it, but it was rather strange people who came in to steal. And I was surprised, because the way they did the thing, you will not suspect them of stealing. And they did it professionally, because the dressing and the way they were walking will not make you suspect anything.
Yeah, we heard they were wearing reflectors?
Yeah, they were wearing reflectors. Reflectors, and some of them were wearing overall, like workers.
Resident engineer of the Pokuase Interchange, Engineer Kwabena Boampon, says the crash barriers that were stolen are valued at a total cost of $3,500. He says they've already picked up signals that some unscrupulous persons want to steal some street lights on the interchange too.
We observed that about 10 sections of our crash barrier had been stolen or removed by unauthorized or unknown persons, and this is about 40-meter length. And we then proceeded to report to the police, after some time. And you asked about the costs. Presently, it's about $3,500 US. There is an operation or modus operandi of those who steal these streetlights, and what they do is that they start by tampering with the connections, and that virtually plunges the whole system, or the whole road into darkness. And then sometimes they come under the cover of darkness to remove the luminaries, or you can see them in broad daylight removing these, luminaries. And we had seen some signs which presupposes that there are plans to do that, and that is why, we have come public. But
So you've seen signs that some people want to steal the streetlight?
Exactly so. Because we've seen, the covers opened, and in some cases the switches have been turned off, and this, has alerted us to the operations of this syndicate who have done similar things on other roads. The Gifford Road. They have been to the that is the N1 on the N1 itself, which is part of the motorway from Tema to Accra. Yeah. So once we say this, we want to caution the public to be on the lookout.
Yeah. We understand sometimes they even wear reflectors, so you think they are workers.
Yeah, exactly so. You see them in reflectors, and even for the street light, they come with the let me explain, use the, like, you see them in that conveyor that takes them up, okay, and they'll be removing the street lights. Yes, so you might think that they work for the contractor, but these people sometimes do not work for the contractor.
Finally, what do you think can be done about this situation?
Well, I think that I have said elsewhere that policing is a shared responsibility. If any of us see people who look suspicious, there's a need for us to ask questions. I think that where we always think that, oh, these people, or we assume that these people are working for the contractor or for the road ministry, I think that we should begin to question people. You know, if they have ID cards, we want to see them. If we want to take pictures, and look, I have done that. Okay, I have done that on projects where I see somebody, I ask you, where are you coming from? He says, oh, this man says I should do. I say, okay, if this man says I want to take a picture of you, and then they become, you know, jittery. Once they become jittery, then that should tell you that these people have not been mandated or sanctioned to do whatever they are doing, and they could be thieves. You know, there are these scrap dealers who go around stealing manhole covers. You put a manhole which is supposed to protect, you know, both pedestrians and motorists, and then they go stealing them. You know, so this is something that I would want the public to be on the lookout. And of course, our enforcement agencies, the police, and all who are involved in security, the national security, should be on the lookout for such people.
So now you know the thieves, we are told, disguise themselves as construction workers, so you definitely have to be on the lookout for them. But speaking on the AM show on the Joy News channel, chairman of the Ghana 50 Planning Committee, Dr. Reku Brobe, shared his experience and says that it's time for proper sanctions to be applied for the syndicates to understand that they can't get away with stealing state property.
No proactivity. The councils are not taking steps to inform the public. You know, I heard David say they should get to know. How do they get to know if they are not informed? I'll tell you, Israel, the few times I've corresponded with my council, the one thing that I noticed on their letterhead is that there isn't even a telephone number to call anybody to follow up. You know, deliberately, they don't put phone numbers on their things. And so I think, you know, we need to, first of all, make sure that the councils have the capacity. I mean, we have decimated so many councils into little units, which I don't think really are effective. You know, if you see a problem in Accra, where do you talk to AMA and where do you talk to Ayawasu and where do you talk to somebody else? So there needs to be knowledge about how to be a good citizen, provided by both the councils, the electricity corporation, which has got responsibility, the police, the security system, etc.
Well, the former Commissioner of SRA, Justice Emil Short, also shared his views where he thinks that the growing indiscipline must be checked.
I think that there's too much dishonesty, lawlessness, and indiscipline in our society. And the impunity for which some people commit crimes is also on the increase. Now, with regard to the stealing of these important safety equipment, people have been stealing electric cables from lights on the motorway for quite some time now. And these activities mostly go unpunished. Dishonesty is pervasive in our society. You know, recently I read about several employers complaining about their Ghanaian workers conspiring to steal from them. And some of them have been compelled to dismiss the workers and to replace them with foreigners, thereby worsening the unemployment situation in the country. Also, almost every year, we hear of examination question leakages for the VAT and WASSCE examinations. These practices were unheard of in my early school days. So parents, teachers, invigilators, and educational authorities involve the youth in this corrupt activity, and unwittingly, they are encouraging the youth to engage in corruption at a very early stage.
Essentially recruiting them.
Yes, actually, yes. And then it is alleged that some teachers and lecturers sleep with their students for better grades. I mean, the list goes on and on. You know, like to mention so many. And the indiscipline is also goes unchecked. Many motorists without lawful authority install and use sirens on their 4x4 vehicles.
Well, the NCC chairperson, Josephine Nkrumah, also says it is time for us to return to our core values as Ghanaians, reminding us about our rights and responsibilities when it comes to the protection of state properties.
I think these things have been with us from time immemorial. The question is the frequency with which we see it now, and actually the apathy with which we are treating this. So yes, we do see all of these things and they go unchecked. But previously, you would see this, but as we had more of a sense of a communal spirit, and people thought that what we owned was collective. And to that extent, when somebody sought to destroy something that was seen as communal, communities or persons in the community would rise against you. We are increasingly seeing a more selfish and individualistic society, and largely what I do is my business, and to that extent is no one else's business. And what somebody else does is his or her business, and to that extent is not my business. And so we see a lot of these things. Some of us would rant and rave, but taking that step to correct it has largely gone undone. We need to reset our priorities as a nation and begin to intentionally direct investment resources to institutions and the citizen in terms of our mindset transformation and development.
So that's the situation. As a Ghanaian, you have a right and a responsibility to protect state property. It's time to adhere to that.